Hey guys, I don't care what sport you watch. This is where the best information is. We are examining the tactical implications of a potential Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy reunion in Pittsburgh. This analysis focuses on schematic continuity, roster age management, and the strategic necessity of a veteran signal caller to bridge a transitional phase in the AFC North.
I've had conversations with him. I spoke to him last week. Mike McCarthy spoke to him, and he knows how we feel about him. And right now we're proceeding. He's a free agent and he's not on the roster. So, but he knows how we feel about him.
One of those back and forth things. Will Aaron want to come back? Do the Steelers obviously sound like they would like him back? It's interesting. His last pass that we saw him throw, Manti, was a very rare pick six. I can't imagine that Aaron Rodgers would end on a note like that. But do you see him coming back and running it back one more time with Pittsburgh?
I think it makes sense. I mean, when you think of Pittsburgh, I think we saw some of the best game out of Aaron Rodgers, especially last year. You saw his ability to use his legs. Now, he isn't the young Aaron Rodgers where he was scrambling, but he did have a touchdown last year where he ran a little boot, and his arm was looking like it was fresh and was ready to go. So when I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, it just makes sense. Mike McCarthy's there, a former head coach for Aaron Rodgers, so he knows the system that Mike McCarthy's trying to install. And if you're trying to do it, is to have a head coach and a quarterback be on the same page. Now, the only caveat to that is Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers have had their disagreements in the past. So what is that going to look like? I'm sure that Mike McCarthy is also taking that into consideration, Jaleel. But for me, it makes sense. The guy was there last year. He knows what the expectations are for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the realities are you have three other quarterbacks that are on the roster: Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson. And if you're asking me who would I rather have as my quarterback, I'm going to go Aaron Rodgers, y'all.
I agree with you, Manti. And to answer your question, yes, but it's only if they plan on winning now and they're not rebuilding, right? You just talked on Mike McCarthy, who's a valuable head coach in this league. He's established. And then you look at the free agents this year, right? You have Daniel Jones, Malik Willis, right? Daniel Jones is coming off a torn Achilles. Malik Willis he's a high upside, but what you really get with him. And then you have Aaron Rodgers. And then you look at the draft class, and it's not that heavy this year, right? So you put your chips in the draft class, no. Free agent, no. You know that Aaron Rodgers is a proven winner. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He knows the system. He knows the culture there at Pittsburgh. And I think if you want to win now, right, and you're not looking to rebuild, which I don't think the Steelers are doing that with the head coach that they hired, you bring Aaron Rodgers back.
Well, I can tell you what, they better bring Aaron Rodgers back because you want a steady ship. The last thing you want to do as a head coach is to step into a boat that's rocky, right? You need a little bit of weight that evenly distributes the weight within the boat, and that's exactly what Aaron Rodgers does for Coach McCarthy. They have history. They have an understanding. Mike McCarthy's been around the league for a very long time. So has Aaron Rodgers. So during a time where you're trying to reestablish this organization and trying to get them at least on some kind of a level playing field, you need in when the 1 year goes by, then you have your guy that can carry you the rest of Mike McCarthy's term.
But Manti, what is one word that comes to mind for you when you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, when I think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially heading into this season, the word that comes to mind for me is seasoned. And it's in the good ways and in bad ways, right? You have the veteran, you have the experience. You put in Aaron Rodgers in that category. He's one of the best to ever play the game, but he's been playing for a while. And then you have Mike McCarthy, who's been coaching as a head coach for almost 2 decades. You look at their roster. Last year, they had the second oldest roster behind the Commanders. Their average age was almost 28 years old. They had 219 games played in 2025 where they had they had players that were over 30 years old. The only other team that had more players was the Washington Commanders at 270. So when I'm looking at this team, it's a team that it seems seasoned. So going into this offseason, I think they need to get some younger talent in there. Not necessarily at the quarterback position, but in skilled positions. Get some guys in there, some guys that can be a DB, some receivers, some running backs, whatever it is. They need to get younger at certain positions because right now I think they look seasoned, Jaleel.
Hey, I love what you said there, Manti. But when I think about the Steelers, the one word that comes to mind for me is crossroads, right? So where are they going with their direction, their franchise? Right now, new quarterback potentially with Aaron Rodgers, right? With free agents coming in. Then you have the coach, Mike McCarthy. Now, where are you going with this, right? Are you signing Aaron Rodgers? Are you not, right? They have the roster to compete in the AFC. They have the talent, right? But what is the direction that you're going with this organization? Right now, we don't know. We shall see.
My word, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the whiteboard a little bit early, okay? We're going to go transition. You guys see it. It's all over the place right now. And that's exactly what I feel like.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I feel. I think it's right.
Yeah,
I'm inspired. I feel like they're in transition because you really don't know who the Pittsburgh Steelers are right now. Yeah. They have had Mike Tomlin was there forever. Now all of a sudden you bring in a Mike McCarthy who is a seasoned coach as well. They have a 42-year-old quarterback that they're trying to woo him back into the building. They have a bunch of free agents that they have to sign offensively because they don't really have a skill position guys under contract right now. You don't know who they are on one side of the ball. So these guys are truly in a transition. Mike McCarthy has a huge task of coming in and establishing an identity for them offensively that they have not had for some years. Yeah. They've had no consistency. They've had no big-time playmakers on a consistent route. They had Pickens for a while. They traded him. Then they bring in DK Metcalf, and then he had injuries last year. Aaron Rodgers and him didn't play a whole lot of games together. They fall short, obviously, of their goals, and then they lose their long-standing coach that nobody thought was going to step away from the game. They are in a transition, and they have to establish an identity. Defense has been that. It has to change up going in the future.
This is such uncharted territory. Looking back at your words, seasoned crossroads transitions. That's not what we're used to seeing from the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Manti, you mentioned seasoned being your word. Yeah. On their defense, they do have those guys that are very well seasoned. Yeah. How can that play a role in just sort of speak to their defense?
Well, when you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the number one thing you think of is defense, right? And the defense has carried them throughout for decades, and this goes back all the way to the Steel Curtain. You think of all the great Pittsburgh teams, it had a defense that was attached to it. So if you're Mike McCarthy, you settle on the fact that you have a defense that has seen a lot. However, at the same point, you are in a division like the AFC North where you have to worry about guys like Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and whatever they're doing over there in Cleveland, right? So there are so many unknowns, and I liked what Zay said with the transition, right? There's also a transition in the AFC North as well, right? With the Baltimore Ravens getting a new coach. What's that going to look like? So if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, you are looking at I'm in a transition, but then also the Cleveland Browns are in a transition. The Baltimore Ravens are in a transition. The only one that seems to have some carryover is the Bengals, right? So I'm really looking at this whole AFC North, and I could put that transition word with all of them. And so, yes, it's a little frightening if you're going into the season and you don't have a quarterback. You just have a coach that's been there for 2 decades. But at the same time, everything is new in that division. So solidify your identity first as a team, and then worry about the other 3 guys in your division. I think they should be fine, especially with that defense.
Yeah, and the season will be, we could say, starting there, right, because the draft is in Pittsburgh this year, so the Steelers will be playing host to that.
The potential acquisition of Aaron Rodgers by the Pittsburgh Steelers under the hypothetical direction of Mike McCarthy presents a complex case study in roster construction and schematic integration. From a purely tactical perspective, the argument for Rodgers rests heavily on the concept of operational continuity. In a league where installing a new offensive system typically results in a year of inefficiency due to terminology barriers and adjustment periods, bringing in a quarterback who has spent over a decade mastering the head coach's playbook bypasses the learning curve entirely. Rodgers possesses the ability to manage protections at the line of scrimmage and execute the West Coast-based concepts that McCarthy favors, specifically the isolation routes and timing-based passing concepts, without the friction usually associated with a regime change. However, the seasoned nature of the Steelers' roster, as noted in the film analysis, introduces a variable of diminishing returns. With an average roster age nearing 28 and a significant number of snaps played by athletes over 30, the tactical ceiling is limited by physical decline. An older roster generally excels in mental processing and zone discipline on defense, but struggles against speed in space. Offensively, placing a 40-year-old quarterback behind a line or with skill players who lack explosive separation ability creates a precarious structure. Rodgers' game has evolved. While he retains arm talent and red zone precision, his escapability is not what it was. The boot actions and scrambling ability mentioned must be utilized sparingly to preserve durability. Therefore, the offensive line's integrity becomes paramount. If the protection holds, Rodgers allows for a ball control strategy that prioritizes time of possession and turnover margin, critical metrics when competing against dynamic offenses like the Ravens or Bengals in the AFC North. Strategically, the transition label applied to the franchise suggests a crossroads between a win-now approach and a full rebuild. Tactically, signing a veteran like Rodgers is a stopgap measure designed to maximize the current window of the defensive core. The Steelers' defense has historically been the foundational unit. By pairing a high-efficiency, low-turnover quarterback with a veteran defense, the strategy shifts to winning low-scoring, field position battles rather than engaging in high-scoring shootouts. This approach mitigates the risk of the younger, unproven quarterbacks on the roster, Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, who may not be equipped to handle the complex disguised coverages seen in the division. Ultimately, the decision hinges on the bridge philosophy. If McCarthy intends to draft and develop a successor, Rodgers serves as the on-field coordinator, translating the system in real time. This mentorship role is invaluable for long-term schematic retention. Conversely, relying solely on Rodgers to carry the operational load without an influx of youth at the skill positions, WRDB, risks a structural collapse late in the season due to attrition. The AFC North demands physical resilience. A roster skewed too heavily toward veterans may lack the recovery capacity required for a 17-game season. The tactical fit is undeniable regarding the mental aspect of the game, but the physical implementation requires a younger supporting cast to offset the lack of mobility in the pocket.